Fashion, Part 2, Marketing. Market research. Consumers of different groups have varying needs and demands. Factors taken into consideration when thinking of consumers' needs include key demographics. To understand consumers' needs and predict fashion trends, fashion companies have to do market research. There are two research methods: primary and secondary. Secondary methods are taking other information that has already been collected, for example, using a book or an article for research. Primary research is collecting data through surveys, interviews, observation, and/or focus groups. Primary research often focuses on large sample sizes to determine customers' motivations to shop. The benefits of primary research are specific information about a fashion brand's consumer is explored. Surveys are helpful tools. Questions can be open-ended or closed-ended. Negative factor surveys and interviews present is that the answers can be biased due to wording in the survey or on face to face interactions. Focus groups, about 8 to 12 people, can be beneficial because several points can be addressed in depth. However, there are drawbacks to this tactic too. With such a small sample size, it is hard to know if the greater public would react the same way as the focus group. Observation can really help a company gain insight on what a consumer truly wants. There is less of a bias because consumers are just performing their daily tasks, not necessarily realizing they are being observed. For example, observing the public by taking street style photos of people, the consumer did not get dressed in the morning knowing that would have their photo taken necessarily. They just wear what they would normally wear. Through observation, patterns can be seen, helping trend forecasters know what their target market needs and wants. Knowing the needs of consumers will increase fashion companies' sales and profits. Through research and studying the consumers' lives, the needs of the customer can be obtained and help fashion brands know what trends the consumers are ready for. Symbolic consumption. Consumption is driven not only by need, the symbolic meaning for consumers is also a factor. Consumers engaging in symbolic consumption may develop a sense of self over an extended period of time as various objects are collected as part of the process of establishing their identity, and when the symbolic meaning is shared in a social group to communicate their identity to others. For teenagers, consumption plays a role in distinguishing the child self from the adult. Researchers have found that the fashion choices of teenagers are used for self expression and also to recognize other teens who wear similar clothes. The symbolic association of clothing items can link individuals' personality and interests, with music as a prominent factor influencing fashion decisions. Political influences. Political figures have played a central role in the development of fashion, at least since the fame of French King Louis XIV. For example, First Lady Jacqueline Kennedy was a fashion icon of the early 1960s, wearing Chanel suits, structural Givenchy shift dresses, and soft-colored Cassini coats with large buttons. She inspired trends of both elegant formal dressing and classic feminine style. Cultural upheavals have also had an impact on fashion trends. For example, during the 1960s, the US economy was robust, the divorce rate was increasing, and the government approved the birth control pill. These factors inspired the younger generation to rebel against entrenched social norms. The civil rights movement, a struggle for social justice and equal opportunity for blacks, and the women's liberation movement, seeking equal rights and opportunities and greater personal freedom for women, were in full bloom. In 1964, the leg-bearing miniskirt was introduced and became a white-hot trend. Fashion designers then began to experiment with the shapes of garments, loose sleeveless dresses, micro minis, flared skirts, and trumpet sleeves. Fluorescent colors, print patterns, bell bottom jeans, fringed vests, and skirts became de rigueur outfits of the 1960s. Concern and protest over U.S. involvement in the failing Vietnam War also influenced fashion. Camouflage patterns in military clothing developed to help military personnel be less visible to enemy forces, seeped into streetwear designs in the 1960s. Camouflage trends have disappeared and resurfaced several times since then, appearing in high fashion iterations in the 1990s. Designers such as Valentino, Dior, and Dolce & Gabbana combined camouflage into their runway and ready to wear collections. Today, variations of camouflage, including pastel shades in every article of clothing or accessory, continue to enjoy popularity. Technology influences. Today, technology plays a sizable role in society, and technological influences are correspondingly increasing within the realm of fashion. Wearable technology has become incorporated. For example, clothing constructed with solar panels that charge devices and smart fabrics that enhance wear comfort by changing color or texture based on environmental changes. 3D printing technology has influenced designers such as Iris Van Harpen and Kimberly Ovitz. As the technology evolves, 3D printers will become more accessible to designers and eventually consumers. These could potentially reshape design and production in the fashion industry entirely. Internet technology, enabling the far reaches of online retailers and social media platforms, has created previously unimaginable ways for trends to be identified, marketed, and sold immediately. Trend setting styles are easily displayed and communicated online to attract customers. Posts on Instagram or Facebook can quickly increase awareness about new trends in fashion, which subsequently may create high demand for specific items or brands. New buy now button technology can link these styles with direct sales. Machine vision technology has been developed to track how fashion spread through society. The industry can now see the direct correlation on how fashion shows influence street chic outfits. Effects such as these can now be quantified and provide valuable feedback to fashion houses, designers, and consumers regarding trends. Media. The media plays a significant role when it comes to fashion. For instance, an important part of fashion is fashion journalism. Editorial critique, guidelines, and commentary can be found on television and in magazines, newspapers, fashion websites, social networks, and fashion blogs. In recent years, fashion blogging and YouTube videos have become a major outlet for spreading trends and fashion tips, creating an online culture of sharing one's style on a website or social media accounts like Instagram, TikTok, or Twitter. Through these media outlets, readers and viewers all over the world can learn about fashion, making it very accessible. In addition to fashion journalism, another media platform that is important in fashion industry is advertisement. Advertisements provide information to audiences and promote the sales of products and services. The fashion industry utilizes advertisements to attract consumers and promote its products to generate sales. A few decades ago, when technology was still underdeveloped, advertisements heavily relied on radio, magazines, billboards, and newspapers. These days, there are more various ways in advertisements, such as television ads, online based ads, using internet websites and posts, videos, and live streaming in social media platforms. Fashion and printed media. There are two subsets of print styling: editorial and lifestyle. Editorial styling is the high fashion styling seen in fashion magazines, and this tends to be more artistic and fashion forward. Lifestyle styling focuses on a more overtly commercial goal, like a department store advertisement, a website, or an advertisement where fashion is not what's being sold but the models hired to promote the product in the photo. The dressing practices of the powerful have traditionally been mediated through art and the practices of the courts. The looks of the French court were disseminated through prints from the 16th century on, but gained cohesive design with the development of a centralized court under King Louis XIV, which produced an identifiable style that took his name. At the beginning of the 20th century, fashion magazines began to include photographs of various fashion designs and became even more influential than in the past. In cities throughout the world, these magazines were greatly sought after and had a profound effect on public taste in clothing. Talented illustrators drew exquisite fashion plates for the publications, which covered the most recent developments in fashion and beauty. Perhaps the most famous of these magazines was La Gazette du Bon Ton, which was founded in 1912 by Lucien Vogel and regularly published until 1925, with the exception of the war years. Vogue, founded in the United States in 1892, has been the longest lasting and most successful of the hundreds of fashion magazines that have come and gone. Increasing affluence after World War II, and most importantly, the advent of cheap color printing in the 1960s, led to a huge boost in its sales and heavy coverage of fashion in mainstream women's magazines, followed by men's magazines in the 1990s. One such example of Vogue's popularity is the younger version, Teen Vogue, which covers clothing and trends that are targeted more toward the fashionista on a budget. Haute couture designers followed the trend by starting ready to wear and perfume lines, which are heavily advertised in the magazines, now dwarf their original couture businesses. A recent development within fashion print media is the rise of text based and critical magazines, which aim to prove that fashion is not superficial by creating a dialogue between fashion academia and the industry. Examples of this development are Fashion Theory 1997, Fashion Practice, the Journal of Design Creative Process and the Fashion Industry 2008, and Vestoy 2009. Fashion and television. Television coverage began in the 1950s with small fashion features. In the 1960s and 1970s, fashion segments on various entertainment shows became more frequent, and by the 1980s, dedicated fashion shows such as fashion television started to appear. Fashion TV was the pioneer in this undertaking and has since grown to become the leader in both fashion television and new media channels. The fashion industry is beginning to promote their styles through bloggers and social medias. Vogue specified Chiara Ferragni as blogger of the moment due to the rises of followers through her fashion blog that became popular. A few days after the 2010 Fall Fashion Week in New York City came to a close, the New Islander's fashion editor Genevieve Tax criticized the fashion industry for running on a seasonal schedule of its own, largely at the expense of real world consumers. Because designers release their fall collections in the spring and their spring collections in the fall, fashion magazines such as Vogue always and only look forward to the upcoming season, promoting parkas come September while issuing reviews on shorts in January. She writes, savvy shoppers, consequently, have been conditioned to be extremely, perhaps impractically, farsighted with their buying. The fashion industry has been the subject of numerous films and television shows, including the reality show Project Runway and the drama series Ugly Betty. Specific fashion brands have been featured in film, not only as product placement opportunities, but as bespoke items that have subsequently led to trends in fashion. Videos in general have been very useful in promoting the fashion industry. This is evident not only from television shows directly spotlighting the fashion industry, but also movies, events, and music videos which showcase fashion statements as well as promote specific brands through product placements. Controversial advertisements in fashion industry, racism in the fashion industry. Some fashion advertisements have been accused of racism and led to boycotts from customers. Globally known as Swedish fashion brand H&M faced the issue with one of its children wear advertisements in 2018. A black child wearing a hoodie with the slogan "Coolest monkey in the jungle" was featured in the ad. This immediately led to controversy, as monkey is commonly used as slur against black people, and caused many customers to boycott the brand. Many people, including celebrities, posted on social media about their resentment towards H&M and refusal to work with and buy its products. H&M issued a statement saying, "We apologize to anyone this may have offended," though this too received some criticism for appearing insincere. Another fashion advertisement seen as racist was from Gap, an American worldwide clothing brand. Gap collaborated with Ellen DeGeneres in 2016 for the advertisement. It features four playful young girls, with a tall white girl leaning with her arm on a shorter black girl's head. Upon release, some viewers harshly criticized it, claiming it shows an underlying passive racism. A representative from the Root commented that the ad portrays the message that black people are undervalued and seen as props for white people to look better. Others saw little issue with the ad, and that the controversy was the result of people being oversensitive. Gap replaced the image in the ad and apologized to critics. Sexism in fashion advertisements. Many fashion brands have published ads that were provocative and sexy to attract customers' attention. British high fashion brand Jimmy Choo was blamed for having sexism in its ad, which featured a female British model wearing the brand's boots. In this 2-minute ad, men whistle at the model walking on the street with red sleeveless mini dress. This ad gained much backlash and criticism by the viewers, as it was seen as promoting sexual harassment and other misconduct. Many people showed their dismay through social media posts, leading Jimmy Choo to pull down the ad from social media platforms. French luxury fashion brand Yves Saint Laurent also faced this issue with its print ad shown in Paris in 2017. The ad depicted a female model wearing fishnet tights with roller skate stilettos reclining with her legs opened in front of the camera. This advertisement brought harsh comments from both viewers and French advertising organizations directors for going against the advertising codes related to respect for decency, dignity, and those prohibiting submission, violence, or dependence, as well as the use of stereotypes, and additionally said that this ad was causing mental harm to adolescents. Due to the negative public reaction, the poster was removed from the city. Public relations and social media. Fashion public relations involve being in touch with the company's audiences and creating strong relationships with them, reaching out to media and initiating messages that project positive images of the company. Social media plays an important role in modern day fashion public relations, enabling practitioners to reach a wide range of consumers through various platforms. Building brand awareness and credibility is a key implication of good public relations. In some cases, the hype is built about new designers' collections before they are released into the market, due to the immense exposure generated by practitioners. Social media such as blogs, microblogs, podcasts, photo, and video sharing sites have all become increasingly important to fashion public relations. The interactive nature of these platforms allows practitioners to engage and communicate with the public in real time and tailor their client's brand or campaign messages to the target audience. With blogging platforms such as Instagram, Tumblr, WordPress, Squarespace, and other sharing sites, bloggers have emerged as expert fashion commentators, shaping brands and having a great impact on what is on trend. Women in the fashion public relations industry, such as Sweaty Betty PR, found Roxy Jasenko and Oscar de la Renta's PR girl Erica Behrman have acquired copious followers on their social media sites by providing a brand identity and a behind the scenes look into the companies they work for. Social media is changing the way practitioners deliver messages as they are concerned with the media and also customer relationship building. PR practitioners must provide effective communication among all platforms in order to engage the fashion public in an industry socially connected via online shopping. Consumers have the ability to share their purchases on their personal social media pages, such as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. And if practitioners deliver the brand message effectively and meet the needs of its public, word of mouth publicity will be generated and potentially provide wide reach for the designer and their products. Fashion and political activism. As fashion concerns people and signifies social hierarchies, fashion intersects with politics and the social organization of societies, whereas haute couture and business suits are associated by people in power. Also, groups aiming to challenge the political order also use clothes to signal their position. The explicit use of fashion as a form of activism is usually referred to as fashion activism. There is a complex relationship between fashion and feminism. Some feminists have argued that by participating in feminine fashions, women are contributing to maintaining the gender differences which are part of women's oppression. Brown Miller felt that women should reject traditionally feminine dress, focusing on comfort and practicality rather than fashion. Others believe that it is the fashion system itself that is repressive in requiring women to seasonally change their clothes to keep up with trends. Greer has advocated this argument that seasonal changes in dress should be ignored. She argues that women can be liberated by replacing the compulsiveness of fashion with enjoyment of rejecting the norm to create their own personal styling. This rejection of seasonal fashion led to many protests in the 1960s, alongside rejection of fashion on socialist, racial, and environmental grounds. However, Mossman has pointed out that the relationship between protesting fashion and creating fashion is dynamic because the language and style used in these protests has then become part of fashion itself. Fashion designers and brands have traditionally kept themselves out of political conflicts. There has been a movement in the industry towards taking more explicit positions across the political spectrum. From maintaining a rather apolitical stance, designers and brands today engage more explicitly in current debates. For example, considering the US's political climate in the surrounding months of the 2016 presidential election. During 2017 fashion weeks in London, Milan, New York, Paris, and Sao Paulo, amongst others, many designers took the opportunity to take political stances, leveraging their platforms and influence to reach their customers. This has also led to some controversy over democratic values, as fashion is not always the most inclusive platform for political debate, but a one way broadcast of top down messages. When taking an explicit political stance, designers generally favor issues that can be identified in clear language with virtuous undertones. For example, aiming to amplify a greater message of unity, inclusion, diversity, and feminism in a fashion space. Designer Mara Hoffman invited the founders of the Women's March in Washington to open her show, which featured modern silhouettes of utilitarian wear described by critics as made for a modern warrior and clothing for those who still have work to do. Prabal Gurung debuted his collection of t-shirts featuring slogans such as "The future is female, we will not be silenced," and nevertheless she persisted, with proceeds going to the ACLU, Planned Parenthood, and Gurung's own charity, Shiksha Foundation Nepal. Similarly, the Business of Fashion launched the Tied Together movement on social media, encouraging members of the industry, from editors to models, to wear a white bandana, advocating for unity, solidarity, and inclusiveness during Fashion Week. Fashion may be used to promote a cause, such as to promote healthy behavior, to raise money for a cancer cure, or to raise money for local authorities, such as the Juvenile Protective Association or a children's hospice. One fashion cause is Trashion, which is using trash to make clothes, jewelry, and other fashion items in order to promote awareness of pollution. There are a number of modern fashion artists such as Marina Debris, Anne Weiser, and Nancy Judd. Other designers have used DIY fashions in the tradition of the punk movement to address elitism in the industry to promote more inclusion and diversity. Anthropological perspective. From an academic lens, the sporting of various fashions has been seen as a form of fashion language, a mode of communication that produced various fashion statements using a grammar of fashion. This is a perspective promoted in the work of influential French philosopher and semiotician Roland Barthes. Anthropology, the study of culture and of human societies, examines fashion by asking why certain styles are deemed socially appropriate and others are not. From the theory of interactionism, a certain practice or expression is chosen by those in power in a community, and that becomes the fashion as defined at a certain time by the people under influence of those in power. If a particular style has a meaning in an already occurring set of beliefs, then that style may have a greater chance of becoming fashion. According to cultural theorists Ted Polemus and Lynn Proctor, one can describe fashion as adornment, of which there are two types: fashion and anti-fashion, through the capitalization and commoditization of clothing, accessories, and shoes, etc. What once constituted anti-fashion becomes part of fashion as the lines between fashion and anti-fashion are blurred, as expressions that were once outside the changes of fashion are swept along with trends to signify new meanings. Examples range from how elements from ethnic dress becomes part of a trend and appear on catwalks or street cultures. For example, how tattoos travel from sailors, laborers, and criminals to popular culture. To cultural theorist Malcolm Bernard, fashion and anti fashion differ as polar opposites. Anti fashion is fixed and changes little over time, varying depending on the culture or social group one is associated with or where one lives. But within that group or locality, the style changes little. Fashion, in contrast, can change, evolve very quickly, and is not affiliated with one group or area of the world but spreads throughout the world wherever people can communicate easily with each other. An example of anti fashion would be ceremonial or otherwise traditional clothing, where specific garments and their designs are both reproduced faithfully and with the intent of maintaining a status quo of tradition. This can be seen in the clothing of some kabuki plays, where some character outfits are kept intact from designs of several centuries ago, in some cases retaining the crests of the actors considered to have perfected the role. Anti fashion is concerned with maintaining the status quo, while fashion is concerned with social mobility. Time is expressed in terms of continuity in anti fashion and in terms of change in fashion. Fashion has changing modes of adornment, while anti fashion has fixed modes of adornment. From this theoretical lens, change in fashion is part of the larger industrial system and is structured by the powerful actors in this system to be a deliberate change in style, promoted through the channels influenced by the industry, such as paid advertisements. Intellectual property.